My dear scholars, in this module, we are looking at some very important Chinese philosophers. And these Chinese philosophers actually help in China to create 3 systems of thought. And all of them are working, even today. And remember Sun Tzu? I already talked about 500 BC. Sun Tzu's Chinese military strategies are even read today by the military and business leaders. So looking at Chinese scholars, Chinese philosophers, in fact, Chinese management influencers, how the things were being managed in those days when we are talking about even in the ancient China, 1600 BC. Remember, Sun Tzu is 500 BC. Even in the ancient China, which is about 1500, 1600 BC, it produced 3 systems of thought. And all these 3 systems are actually related to 3 Chinese scholars, philosophers, whose teachings are followed even today. And they are given a lot of respect. They are taken as prophets. And at their time, when they were alive, they were given a lot of respect by the kings. These 3 systems of thought, all of them gave directions for administration in their own way. And Chinese people living in China, in Singapore, in Malaysia, and even people living in Korea and Japan would also like to relate to some of these teachings which are coming from those 3 Chinese important, well-known philosophers and scholars. And when we read the Western theories even today, now, even in the Academy of Management journals, you will find how the Western theories are related into the Eastern theories. How the Chinese concept can be implemented in the Western societies and Western organizations. The very first one, very well known, Confucius. Confucius was in the favor of creating an orderly social system. Remember, you're talking about human beings, cities, states, the office of the king, and the wazirs, and the counselors, and the advisors, and how they behave with the other people. So Confucius, who was working at the court of the king, he wanted to create an orderly social system. He presented in teaching how the civil servants. Remember, in those days, most of the time, the people were working for the state. And the state was being ruled most of the time by the king. So the civil servant and the people who were involved in the trade, it was known as trading, buying and selling, as you call them today, the business people. So the duties and the responsibilities of the civil servants and the business people, how they behave, Confucius has written, talked, presented to the king, and then to be followed among the state of the king. And of course, it created its own system of thought. It has effect on culture, it has effect on knowledge, it has effect on creativity, it has effect on everything. Because remember, it's an orderly social system. Lao Tzu, sometimes it is known as Taoism. Confucianism, Taoism. So Confucianism is the system of thought given by Confucius. Taoism is the system of thought given by Lao Tzu. T is silent. Lao Tzu. He argued for a social system, but less order, with minimum control. to give more freedom to the citizens of the society, to the human beings. And if you recall, and please go and read the concept of yin and yang. It's a very famous Chinese symbol. It's a circle, and in the circle, half of it is yin, half of it is yang. Some people say it's a balance of good and bad. Some would say it's a balance of light and darkness. Some would say it's a balance between a man and a woman. Remember, you're talking about human being and people in this society. And all these concepts are prevailed in this society, and it is covered in yin and yang. So Confucianism and Taoism, and you will find temples related. I've seen in Singapore, in China, in Malaysia, temples related to Taoism and temples related to Confucianism. The third system of thought is basically given by Sun Tzu. He has written a book, Art of War. He was a warrior. He was a military leader. And in 500 BC, he is talking about the military strategies. The word strategy came from Sun Tzu, and it is known even today. He's a Chinese writer on strategy, and I think if you read the Western strategies, you'll find the same thing. When you're talking about management of war. And the book, Art of War, it is so popular that the business leaders, the political leaders, the military leaders, even today, all over the world, they read what was written 500 BC. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि जो कॉन्सेप्ट यूनिवर्सल हैं वो आज भी उसी तरह से एक्सेप्टेबल हैं. और स्ट्रेटजी की किताबों में तो सन त्जू का नाम आपको बार बार नजर आएगा. You talk about competition. You talk about competitive advantage. You talk about how to win the war, how to kill the competitor. And you will see all those things coming from systematically written in this book. He talks about a systematic approach of warfare. He talks about that when you are in the war, you must use your intelligence.